Season 1, Episode 24 of the Potomac RPG Podcast. Any voice is fine, so long as they're not the ones in your head.
Welcome one and all to the Potomac RPG Podcast, your source for old news, tired conversation, and mediocre advice for all of your favorite tabletop role-playing games. I'm your host, an American trying to pull a generic English accent, Adam.
I'm your girl trying to do a brooding male octave, Sarah.
And I am your guy doing an impression of an outrageous French accent, Ben.
Wonderful. I love it. All right. So yeah, you already have a bit of a preview of what this episode is going to be about. But before we jump in, I did want to make an announcement that we now have a merch store. So yay! If you want t-shirts, mugs, face masks, sweaters, whatever, it's on there. We have a Teespring shop that's open. So that's teespring.com/stores/Potomac RPG, all one word. So if you're looking to pick up something that has some random podcast logo on it, we're your store to shop at. So check it out. I'll have the link in the show notes as well as all over the website. So feel free to check that out. But
also, whoever took the coral t-shirt for women, I will fight you for it.
Well, let's jump into the topic for the day. Part of the fun of tabletop role-playing is the voices we all use for our characters. Though it's not a requirement to have a voice for your characters, I don't think I've laughed harder or been more emotionally invested in what's going on in a game than when someone has a great character voice. Mm-hmm. And with things like Critical Role or the myriad of actual play podcasts out there, using a character voice is more and more the norm. Now, Ben, what kind of effect does a great character voice from a player or DM have on you and the game that you're in?
So a great character voice brings you into the character and the personality of that character better than probably anything else that you can do at a role-playing table. And being a good role player is about inhabiting a new personality that is unlike your own. And some people can't do the voices as well as they'd like to, but if they can dive into the character they need to get into that character in other ways. But if you can do the voice, it just adds that level of immersion where it's no longer Ben at the table, it's the dwarf with the Scottish accent, or the kobold with the ridiculous French accent. It's it is Meepo that's sitting there at the table who is talking.
I loved Meepo. Meepo was so cool. He did such a great job. Well, how about you, Sarah?
Yes. I think Ben said it all. It elevates the entire experience of immersion. And it tells you so much more about that character, especially when you not only are doing the voice, but you also see the person kind of inhabiting the character. And you don't need to have experience in, a lot of experience in acting or drama or anything like that. It's just the little cock of the shoulder or a little smirk a little bit when they're talking on top of a voice change can really, really just transform the entire experience, I think, for everyone. And one of the biggest things for me when I first joined this group is I don't know, are we gonna do voices? Am I the only asshole who's gonna do a voice? And then I won't do it because I'm I don't want to be that person, right? So I think when we're all kind of putting ourselves out there, it's kind of okay, yeah, so we got blackmail on everyone, we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just all play.
Well, yeah, and You touched on a great part of that in terms of that within the tabletop game, there's this suspension of disbelief, and it makes that suspension of disbelief much stronger whenever there's a voice behind it. If it's just my buddy, Tom talking in his normal voice, well, it's hard for me to visualize the character that's there that he's playing. So it really is nice. I'll use Tom again. He's really been starting to play with his character voices. And for those who don't know, Tom is actually the voice of Ralphie the News Goblin. So like he's really been doing a lot on that front to try to get more range, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I love her beloved Ralphie.
Oh yeah.
But well, hey, let's dive into this topic a little bit more with some questions. So the first post that we have today comes from Reddit user Sammy Sparks, who asks, new to voices. So I've been playing D&D for the past 3 years, and I've never been that strong in the roleplay aspect. I do my best, but I feel like my characters often come off pretty one note. I think it might be due to the fact that I don't do a different voice than my own for my character. I am female, and most of the time I play females. My D&D group is majority men minus me and another girl. When I play a male character, I do pretty okay at the dropping my voice an octave and pretend to be a macho man. But when I play a female, my brain just can't put the pieces together. Do you guys have any tools or suggestions on how to get better at learning/doing voices? I want to improve. All right, Sarah. So what do you think of Sammy Sparks' situation? Any advice for her?
Yeah, I absolutely relate to this because I actually have a hard time doing different distinguishing voices for girls who I all like want to be found like charismatic and like the lead protagonist in any romance film, right? Like if I am playing a character like that, they all sound the same because I have this idea in my head that this is what sexy and beautiful and kick-ass maybe looks like. But when I am doing like an other sometimes my men tend to be one note, but when I'm doing like another character, a gnome or like a halfling or something, for some reason it is easier for me to embody those characters, probably because I'm less inhibited about what they should be like. I'm a little bit more willing to let like certain tics or flaws kind of come through, and for some reason that's actually easier in the end to just embody those characters and find their voice. So I guess I don't know if this is the same problem that she's having, but it just make sure that you're not trying to pull off the perfect character, and then just play with it. Sometimes it's gonna be practice. Like do a shot of tequila or something if it'll help you relax. Because it's more than just the voice. It's gonna come down to a little bit more the body, like does your even like Steve when he was doing the closet, he was like playing with his little fingers together, and he's like he's doing like a little laugh, and that kind of elevated the experience. So try to also do a little bit of body motions, even if you're like in your shower and you got 5 minutes, you can start talking to yourself and your character and trying to figure it out. The one thing I will say when you do start really kind of exploring that voice is it's also going to deepen your connection to the character and your immersion as well as other people's at the table, simply because like you're letting go of you're creating a bigger distance between you and the character that you're playing, and that'll make it easier for you to kind of go with the flow with that character. A little bit more distance is gonna help you mentally, I think, with the role. And
Yeah, two points on that though, Sarah. Like number one, I love that idea that you just mentioned, because basically what it says is it got me thinking about those people who, they'll make a decision and, they say, oh, that's what my character would do, that whole story. But when you are playing your character with voice and mannerisms and stuff like that, it's much easier to make sense of the decisions that you made. Whereas if you're using your normal voice and saying, oh, I choose to do this, then the other players have a tendency to look at you like, okay, why are you, that's a dumb move. Why would you do that? No, this is my character acting in character. And by using your character voice as well, that makes that picture so much clearer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the second part, I love your idea around like the gnomes and the halflings. And I've noticed this with your play, the further you get away from standard human character,
Mhm.
the more varied your voice becomes. One of my favorite voices of yours ever was Rushka, the half orc, and she, that kind of guttural Russian accent that you threw on there was just on
I will
point.
break you, little man, if you call me
Yeah.
Russian.
I loved it. So maybe if all of your characters are sounding one note, maybe go a little bit further away from your standard human. That gives you a bit more permission to change it up a bit. It makes a bit more sense to have an odd sounding accent in that. So just a thought there. Ben, what do you think on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with that point about getting distance between you and your character. You need to have a clear distinction, and you need to be able to easily turn on your character so that you can uh, not make decisions as the player and make decisions as the character. Just People say that when you're learning a new language, you know that you've learned it when you start dreaming in that language. And
All
I
right.
think there's a corollary here that when you can start thinking as your character, then you've learned your character and their personality. So
That's an awesome perspective. I love that.
so if
Do
you're
you-
dreaming like your character, you've probably gone a little too far.
No, man, you're there. Now, do you guys, when you're embodying your characters, are you also like imagining like things about them at the same time, like their size, their how they might be looking up to someone, or like the role with this person, whether it's like dominant or peer level or anything? Like, are you guys kind of envisioning that, or are you just kind of reacting with the voice?
No, I'm definitely trying to envision that. Keeping a mental picture of what's going on, using your face and your body language to get into the role is another good way of doing it. You pointed out Steve's really good at his imp or quasit, whatever it was, and just adding a little bit of hand motions and just trying to express a little bit in your face, that really adds to the ease in which you can get into your character. I mean, some people it's a little awkward to be acting like an imp or a quasit or whatever, or a husky orc or whatever happens to be the thing that you want to be enacting. But in a lot of ways, it helps you get out of yourself and into that character better, and it makes it easier for everybody else at the table or virtual table to suspend their disbelief and believe that you are your character, or at least that you're trying to be your character and you are no longer trying to be yourself.
Yeah, well, you brought up a great point in terms of the body usage as well. That really does make a big difference. And on your point as well, Sarah, kind of the two go together, whether you're envisioning, for example, in our Avernus campaign with Tormid, he's an old military grumpy guy. Like, he's old and retired and everything. So I picture in my head what that, someone who reminds me of that. So I'll actually sit differently in my chair. My
Mhm.
jaw
I noticed
juts
that, yeah.
out a little bit, and I get this guttural like growl to my voice whenever I'm yelling at Tom's character for what I'm Andreas, get over here. That kind of thing. And it really I physically get into that. And then with Milo, the rogue, the mastermind rogue, she's smart as hell. I got this kind of physicality of being a bit more sly, a little bit of a smart ass, and the mannerisms that come with that to help get into that character. And
Yeah,
I
you put
noticed
in
that
some
with
like head
all
movements.
of you. Yeah, exactly. So that the physical nature, I don't think we can ignore that. That really helps you dive into the character and forget that you're a person sitting at a wooden table, playing a game with other like-minded adults, and that you're actually in the world that has been created. Great ideas from both of you. That should help. Hopefully it does help. Sammy Sparks, would love to hear how your voices come along. I know sometimes it's tough to get out of that one note kind of thing. But hopefully that gave you some ideas of some things that you can try.
One more
All right.
point.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes people are a little reticent to do this, but you need to get over that and really crank it to 11, at least when you first start off, because you're getting into another character. People are going to go with it if you're doing it 100%, and you really need that to give it all you've got at the start of that character. If you've got 2 or 3 lines, just hammer them until you get the feel of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't half-ass this at all. You got to get in there.
Yeah, and people can always pick up on when you're having like fun with the character. Like it comes through, and it sort of I don't know, buffs their enjoyment, if that makes sense. Because like if you're having a good time and you're just embodying this character and stuff, like people are really gonna respond to that. So don't and also the pendulum may swing really far one way. Like if this is your first time using the voice, you might just go all out. Do not worry if you kind of settle somewhere a little bit not that far in the end with your character when you get the more comfortable, because I know that like when I came out with Rushka, she was really like hardcore, almost like dumb words and stuff, and now she still kind of abbreviates words and doesn't use big ones, but it doesn't come across as I'm a big dumb fork. It's more like I will break you and stuff like that. So and she'll articulate exactly what she's going to do to you. So
first 2 or 3 sessions, don't worry about subtlety or anything like that.
In fact, avoid it. Avoid subtlety.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just get in it. That's a great point there, Ben. Thank you very much. So, Sammy Sparks, let us know how things are going with your vocals.
I have news here.
And the sound of Ralphie the News Goblin, as we know, Tom, can mean only one thing. It's time for Potomac RPG News. All right, got a double shot of news today. First up, we have an article from ScreenRant.com written by Braxton Kimball titled, "What Classic D&D Settings Are Returning to Dungeons & Dragons in 2021?" Now, first up is, I think, a favorite of yours, Sarah. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's Dark Sun.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So how do you feel about Dark Sun returning to the table?
I am so psyched. So just a full disclosure here, I last played Dark Sun like in the mid 90s, and I actually never DM'd in it. It was another girl that I was playing with who would do the DMing. So I actually never saw like or read the campaign or anything like that. So everything that was produced from her was like either in her head or from that campaign. So there might have been some homebrew stuff going on, but I absolutely love that setting. The factions, the heat, like the exoticness of just a different location that isn't like a medieval village in the middle of like a forest and mountains,
Western Europe, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for the listeners who aren't aware of what Dark Sun is, like, can you describe what the setting's like?
Yeah, I'm gonna try because it's been a little bit. So it's more like a desert sort of setting. I know that there, for instance, there's a one of my favorite things is there's this really dangerous sort of, we call it an ocean, but it's actually made of sand, and the sand is very fine, so much so that you can, take crafts out on it, and then the things that live in that sand are like serpents and stuff like that, and it's very dangerous. Like you cannot even go too far out, or you're gonna die. And I just found that like incredibly sort of transformative. It's just so different. And then now my experience may differ from the actual Dark Sun campaign, but if I recall correctly, there's also these different factions and tribes that sort of lend this really cool flavor to what like to the politics, as well as to like what they want and how they behave and all the cultural little things that sort of make them who they are. So for me, it was really fun. And again, I'm not sure if it was 1-to-1 what I experienced, but I just remember being totally transported with it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great, and I love anything that's going to get us out of that Western Europe kind of setting. I mean, the campaign that adventure I'm running right now is still in the Sword Coast, but we moved on to boats, and it's just refreshing to have a little bit different of a setting that's involved. That's why it was so great that Frost Maiden is out. You know, get something in the north, Dark Sun desert setting, awesome. I love it. Yeah, and then the other, well, Ben, have you had any experience with Dark Sun?
I played a Dark Sun video game, but
Oh,
never
what was that?
in the setting. Oh, it was Dark Sun something, and I spent countless hours in it. It was a very battle focused RPG, and I loved to grind back in the day when time was
we
infinite.
all did. We've all been there. We've all been there.
It was great.
Well, yeah,
but as
cool.
Sarah, I want you to bring that to our group so badly.
Yes.
Yeah, you sound so like it was your first RPG love, and
Yeah,
I want you to bring it.
Yeah,
it was. I'm gonna, as soon as this is like out, I'll definitely pick it up so I can like read through and see how much is what I remember and how much of it is, you know, the design, and then maybe I can introduce you guys to a combination of both. So
yeah, get you behind the screen here at some point, Sarah, right?
Yeah, as long as I don't get rules lawyered. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's going to be tough with Steve at the table. I'm sorry. Well, now the other two likely settings that they have in here in this article will be Spelljammer and Greyhawk. Now, I'm not sure how keen most people are on Spelljammer. I don't hear a ton about that. That seems to, it just in my mind, be a bit of a down period. So I'm not sure how many people love Spelljammer. But Greyhawk was immensely popular. I hear about that all the time. So Ben, do you have any feelings one way or the other with these additional two potential settings?
Let's do Spelljammer first.
Okay.
So I have not had any personal experience with Spelljammer, other than knowing that it's your semi-sci-fi. Well, it brings in space travel into your D&D setting. Yeah. which is cool. It's a little add-on to the system that allows your spell jamming ships to go between the crystal spheres and through the what is it called?
Fallopian tubes?
No.
No, it wasn't that.
No, I don't remember the word. The flotsam? No, that's Folliston. Phlogiston.
I feel like we're playing Hangman.
Yeah. Could I buy a PH? No. Okay. So there was a podcast, the Web DM podcast, where one of the two DMs that were doing this weekly YouTube podcast really loved Spelljammer and would bring around the conversation to his Spelljammer campaign every time. So his antics in that campaign really kind of, I've got an interest now in seeing what a real Spelljammer campaign and what the rule sets are and seeing what you could be doing with it. So yeah, I'm excited to see that. And I love sci-fi stuff in general. So and the like the steampunky feel to I think most Spelljammer campaigns where you're tricking out your airships or your spell jamming ships with with advanced magical technologies. That there's a lot of potential in there. They've got me at least in my interest.
Well, what about Greyhawk?
Okay, yeah, Greyhawk.
All right, we're going to get into it. All right, go for it.
Yeah, I know. He had so much passion for Spelljammer, which he didn't really seem to want to have an opinion on it.
Greyhawk.
Well, so Greyhawk, I've never played in a Greyhawk campaign, but I think a solid maybe 50% of the adventures and the modules in 5e are iterations of things that had their origins in Greyhawk, and I like Against the Giants we did White Plume, There's been a Keep of the Borderlands refresh, and Keep of the Borderlands was like the first module that I ever played back in well before times when I was a young child. And there's just all the really big modules that are classic D&D come from Greyhawk. So we all know the Greyhawk settings modules, but not really the campaign setting, because it isn't in 5e yet, and the refresh in 4e didn't get a lot of uptake, just because 4e didn't get a lot of uptake, and so the last refresh was 3e, and I think that there's good reasons for that, because Greyhawk really isn't a cohesive, in my opinion, Greyhawk really isn't a cohesive campaign setting. It was a collection of modules and adventures that were kind of built out for Gygax's group of players 1 week at a time, or whatever timeline Gygax was playing back in the day, several times a week or whatever. And there's no real defining characteristics of Greyhawk other than it's filled with all these crazy, zany, terrifying adventures. Tomb of Horrors was first a Greyhawk thing. But it's all old classic, very tactical D&D, which is great stuff. But as a campaign setting, I don't know. Especially because all the good bits have been cherry-picked already for 5e.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes sense, and you're definitely pulling me to your side. I don't have a whole lot of experience with either of those two, but you made Spelljammer sound pretty damn cool, and Greyhawk. Like, I hear Matt talk about Greyhawk all the time, so that's why I'm like, oh, it must have been super great back in the day. But like, you're right. If it's more that tactical combat role-playing style, well, that's not really what I get into anyway. But sci-fi, D&D in space, well, I could give that a shot for sure. Now, Sarah, how about you? Any experience with either of these two potential settings?
I think any experience I've had with Greyhawk, I probably didn't know it was Greyhawk that was being used, if that makes sense, because it's such a an add-on. But Spelljammer I have never played, and I pretty much just have the idea of an airship tricked out, and like steampunk sort of D&D characters.
Yes,
I'd be willing to give it a shot.
Here's the deal, though. If Sarah is bringing Dark Sun to the table, Ben, you're gonna have to bring some Spelljammer.
Okay.
Well, hey, if anyone is interested, I got the article in the show notes. We're going to get into the second bit of news, which is a story by Cat Webling over at thegamer.com titled "Power Rangers Morphs into a Tabletop RPG Using D&D 5e Rules." Power Rangers. I gotta admit,
monster grow.
Power Rangers were a bit. That line can be taken out of context. Okay, well, Power Rangers were a bit after my time and not something I was too into. But it does it strike a chord with either of you two?
So, you say it's after your time, which kind of like makes me worried because I'm older than you, and I used to watch this in college. So maybe that says more about me.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
It was pure escapism. I gotta admit, I'm probably not going to. I'm not that much of a fangirl that I'm going to run out and start a Power Rangers campaign or anything like that. I think that there's going to be limits in the sense that there's monsters, and then you're a ranger with a certain.
What kind of story is going to be there? Like every episode was the goddamn same. Like, what are you going to do? So,
summon monsters.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, we have to all come together to ultimately beat it. We can't do it one-on-one.
You have to start to lose at first, and then through the spirit of cooperation and whatnot, you win the day. Ugh, blah.
Yeah,
gross.
I'm just not excited, and I did used to watch it. What about you, Ben?
I want to call dibs on the Green Ranger if this ever is going to take off. But
Wait, what's the
Tommy.
difference between any of them? They're all the same.
No,
Like,
the green was the bad guy who turned good. Like, I mean,
kind of like the Green Knight in medieval times is always the bad guy. Same thing in the
Look,
Power Rangers. Is that how
it's
this works?
It's the most complex character that they had. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Complex.
Yeah, I mean the Red Ranger was the really boring, like paladin-esque fighter guy who, yeah, he was gonna always save the day. But the Green Ranger, he had Smolder.
Yes, he did.
The only thing I remember about the Power Rangers was, well, didn't the pink one like end up doing an adult film or something? Yeah, like that's the only thing I've ever heard about the actual like characters within it. They're just in suits, and I'm gonna get so much hate mail. You can address those emails to Ben at PotomacRPG.com. Well, all right. So Ben, you might be interested. I don't see this coming to our table anytime soon, but if you yourself are interested in the Power Rangers, hey, I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum here. You go for it. Check out the article in the show notes. Now, I just want to add a quick shout out here to Mirth Drake Entertainment. If you remember last week, guys, we featured a Reddit post from them about whether combat in TTRPGs was a young man's game, and it was a great conversation starter. Really liked it. Well, it turns out that Mirth Drake has their own tactical tabletop RPG they created called Fray. They describe it as a mix of D&D style combat and World of Darkness character creation, with its core mechanic around a D12 dice pool to count successes in order to overcome challenges. So it's pretty neat stuff. I checked it out. If you're interested, go ahead and check it out over at mirthdrake.com. We'll also have that in the show notes too. So for now, we're going to step out for a moment, but stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break.
As any tabletop role player would know, coffee is an essential commodity for those 4-hour sessions we all go through. And a great place to get that coffee is foundfamiliar.com. Found Familiar is a couple of people with a passion for coffee creation and D&D, and they've teamed up with favorite artists from all around the world to bring specialty grade coffee that celebrates the creativity sparked by Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs. Use the coupon code Potomac RPG, all one word, at checkout for 10% discount on your purchase. That's at foundfamiliar.com. And with that, let's get back to the show.
Okay, how about another question? This post comes from Reddit user Tony Johnny Cat, who asks, what kind of accents do elves have? And can they only have those accents? So I was thinking of giving my elf character, a moon elf bard, a Scottish accent, partly because I am part Scottish, and the elf's last name is Moon in Gaelic language. Can a moon elf have a Scottish accent, or do all elves have to have the same accent? And it wouldn't fit if the elf had a Scottish accent. I'm just curious and want to know. I'm pretty sure what you're going to say here, Ben, but what do you think? Would it be okay for Tony Johnny Cat to give their elvish character a Scottish accent?
So it is a universally accepted truth that in all of the worlds of D&D, the entire multiverse, that only dwarves have Scottish accents. This is true, but I think that shouldn't be the way it is. As long as your elf has got a accent that properly conveys their haughtiness and superiority over all of the other races, then you should be good to go. Now, if you actually have a moon elf that is down to earth, that's fine too. You can use like a lowland English accent, something that's a little rough around the edges too. Any sort of French accent that's a little earthy, or even like a American, maybe a Creole type, or a Southwest accent, something that even a little Texas drawl would be okay, just to show that your
But
elf
not
is
Scottish.
beyond
That is reserved for dwarves, damn it.
no way.
All right, wait, Sarah, you go ahead and weigh in on this. What do you think?
I think any accent is fine as long as you feel like it's going to like embody like the character or the culture that they were brought up in. Because Ben's right. It's a multiverse, and we all have different sort of ways in which we interpret our individual universes for D&D. So I don't have a problem with it at all, personally. I mean, there was a Southern dude in Star Wars, as Luke's friend from, I can't remember his name. Send your hate mail to Ben. But but he came from the southern part of the galaxy, apparently, because he had a Southern accent in the middle of this huge space drama, which is apparently doesn't have Georgia, but yeah, he had a Southern accent. So right before he blew up, when they were fighting the
spoilers.
Yes.
Spoilers.
So I guess the the saying is we're familiar with different accents, and they've kind of shaped our perception of our world, and so it would be natural that they would translate into our theoretical worlds and sort of bloom from there. I mean, you might come up with some sort of hodgepodge merge of Scottish and Russian. Good luck with that.
Here it is. Tony, Johnny, Cat, I'm gonna talk directly to you right now. The year is 2020. The world is burning down around us. Everything that we love is in jeopardy. You play whatever goddamn accent you want to play. You don't have the time to mess around with these rules and norms and stuff like that. You get that Scottish accent out and you play it to the best of your ability. I love it.
Amen.
I fully support it. You do it. So that's my advice to you, Tony, Johnny, Cat. And hopefully that helps. Would love to hear how your campaign is going at some point. Now, creating a voice for your character can be a real challenge. And if you're a DM, it can be doubly so. Sometimes needing to create voices on the fly for various NPCs. So let's see what kind of voice we can come up with for a character in our long-running segment. Let's build something. Welcome to Let's Build Something, where we get to put our creativity to the test and build something live for all the world to hear. In this week's segment, we're going to do some voicing work. So here's how it'll work. We're each going to roll up a random character using the website Who the Fuck Is My D&D Character? A wonderful site that gives you a quick snippet of a character to build from. Then we get to do some voice design on the character and give our rationale as to why we went the direction that we did. You guys ready for this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, let's get started. All right, so do both of you have the website up and you're ready to generate your character?
Yes.
All right, so on the count of 3, we're all going to hit refresh. We're going to get our characters. 1, 2, 3.
Go.
All right. So first off, Ben, what did you get as a character?
Well, I have rolled stats for a fucking guarded gnome bard from the enchanted forest who is haunted by the ghosts of those that he kills. Actually, it doesn't say he or they kill. So it can be a female or a male bard, but I definitely want to do a male bard here.
Okay, so let's pause on that. You start thinking of the voice that you're going to use and why. Sarah, what do you have?
I have an obnoxious elf ranger from the Boneyard who has anger problems.
Yes.
Nice. All right. And I got a bossy gnome warlock from the best library in the city who always wakes up on the right side of the bed. So we got an eclectic series of characters here. So Ben, let's go over to you first. What kind of voice are you going with yours?
So we've got a gnome bard, and so that generally, to me, gnomes are small creatures, and I think in general you should pitch up your voice a little bit for smaller humanoid races, and a bard is going to probably have a good singing voice, so make it a little melodic and give him some expression and intonation that you might not have in your normal speaking voice. So just start with pitching up and using a little bit more up and down in your voice than you normally would. But he's guarded because the ghosts of those who he's killed come back and haunt him. So every once in a while, maybe just make him a little apprehensive, especially when we're talking about killing things, or when he's got a moment where he's not in the heat of something and he has to reflect or think back, or is distracted by the ghost of those he's killed. So yeah, that's a good start for a gnome bard.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Sarah, what kind of voice are you going with for yours?
So I'm imagining, so it's an obnoxious elf ranger. So this is someone who's not terribly concerned about being polite. They're just gonna go their own way. They're from the boneyard, so they are probably not used to dealing with people diplomatically, or who are diplomatic, and if at all people, and they have anger problems. So I am imagining that this person feels like they've been wronged by the world, like the world is just totally pissing on them, and so they're probably going to be not quite soft spoken, but a little bit just still soft, because one elf, two ranger, and but it's going to be a little bit of a clip, I think, to the language, so like their words will be a little bit clipped because there's something being held back always, and then that way when they do get loud with their anger problems, that it'll be more pronounced. So that's what I'm imagining.
So what is this going to start sounding like? Can you give us a little preview of what this might sound like at the table?
All right, bear with me, because this is the first time I'm trying it on, so it might get.
You got this.
It might go up and down.
Yeah, you got it. Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Don't mind the dead air that just waits for you to speak.
All right.
It's all right. You got this.
There you go. Well, so you got some help from your friend there.
Justin.
Don't be afraid. There's
source of optimism in this messed up world. I'm going to. How come you always have to come? Just stay over there. I'm still trying here. Hang on, it's a little too harsh.
No, you're good. I'm feeling it. Keep coming.
Get a little more gravel in there.
Yeah, you see these people having their good time around their campfire, and they don't even bother to invite anyone closer. They're just gonna let me stand here and just watch them, and they know I'm here. You're gonna pull your sword now? Yeah, you noticed me like 2 minutes ago. What did you little delayed on the action? Hi, how you doing? Can I join your campfire?
I love it. Well done, Sarah. I'll give you some claps for that. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So I have a gnome. So similar to Ben, I think raising the voice pitch a little bit is going to be important. Bossy warlock. I mean, so I'm definitely getting apologies for our friends across the pond. I'm going to get a little bit, I think English, like the hoity-toity kind of. Oh, well, I see how it is. And then best library, he's learned. It's like, well, please, just fetch me that, would you? I'm busy.
Nice.
I'm reading my books.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'm trying to master the forces of the universe, and you're here asking me for help. Are you kidding me? Things like that I think would be really good for a bossy gnome warlock who's well learned. So that would be my guess for a voice character. But hopefully for our listeners, that gives you an idea. I mean, we're no pros. We're not Critical Role. We're just fools sitting around a table playing a game, and you can just kind of work through it, help each other out, and get to a point where the voice feels comfortable, makes sense, and it's something that you can get into. So for everyone listening, that was Let's Build Something. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to get into our last question of the week. This week's last post comes from Reddit user The Wobbling Weeble. Great name. Who asks, help with NPC voices. I finally started my first campaign as a DM. Congratulations. And I hit a wall in session 1. I got stuck on making different voices for NPCs and ended up with almost all of them sounding the same. Like my mind locked up and I couldn't get out an accent or even a different dialect. Is there a decent place to just get a quick burst of a few different accents or ways of speaking just to quickly refresh my brain before sessions? All right, Sarah. So reading down through this post and seeing some of the responses below, it looks like Weeble can do accents pretty well, but just locked in on a similar voice for multiple NPCs. So they're looking for somewhere they can go to get a dose of different accents to put in his memory bank. What do you think of this?
Okay, so I'm not really sure where to send Wobbling Weeble as far as to learn the different voices and dialects that he or she's looking for. What I would actually say is that your voice shouldn't just be a dialect or accent, and maybe that's why you feel like they're one note. I mean, you can speak in like the voice, the accent that you use, accent, what would be to us or other people. You can use the voice that you use every day. It's going to be, there's also like delivery and octave and cadence and other ways in which you can play with this that would make the NPCs sound different. And don't forget to also envision like what their life is like. Our DM, one of our DMs, Anthony, he did a ticket taker at a fair. And this, you just got the whole idea that this person has spent 20 years at the DMV just by like how bored they were, like ticket please. Like it was just like it like sticks with me. It's just like they were so like not being bothered by you. They had all the power, and then they also were bored out of their mind. So like all this came through, and it was like just basically all Anthony did was he changed his voice only slightly, did not use an accent, and basically conveyed to us just like how much power this person had and how bored they were with their position in the world, when yet here they are. And
Exactly.
That just sold it.
Yeah. Well, Ben, how about you? I agree with Sarah that like some of those mannerisms you're trying to kind of convey do a lot to help. Are you aware of any resources where they can just get a quick hit of this stuff so it's in their brain?
So this is a real problem for everybody. I think accents have like this magnetism, this little gravity where they all start kind of coming together. If so, there was a one shot or a couple shot that me and Adam were players in, and we had characters. Adam rolled out a kind of like a southern accent, and I wanted to have
Louisiana.
Yeah. And I wanted to have my character to have like a slightly related accent, but try to give it a little bit of distance. But then by the end of the first session, we were both talking on top of each other in the same accent. And so that's exactly what's going on here. You've got too many things, too many accents and they're all just kind of coalescing together because, well, this is the only time you do this once a week where you're talking in different accents, and you're a human being who doesn't do this routinely and haven't had years of voice acting and training and experience. So first, give yourself a break, and then maybe put together like a little card, get a picture of your character on it, and write down 2 or 3 characteristics of their voice or their personality that you can pick as a go-to. Say high pitch, gravelly, or slow cadence, expressive, or an English accent, and just have that on every character just as a reminder, and try and play into the extremes a little bit while you're bringing out the characters so that it's clear where you're switching over.
Well, yeah, I got 2 pieces of advice on this one. Number one, with what Ben was saying, if you do have time to prep the voice, in terms of reminders, sometimes instead of a descriptor, what you can do is, okay, who are you patterning it after? So let's say it's a mix of Bing Crosby and Matthew McConaughey. Like you write that on the card, and that gives you that immediate image that you can kind of fall into that voice a little bit better than just a descriptor like Southern mixed with laid back hippie surfer dude kind of stuff. Like you can kind of get a mental image a little quicker if it's based on a combination of two famous people. And the second thing I would say is if it's on the fly that you're having any trouble with, you have to kind of set a culture for where you're at. So if you're in a city of Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate or something like that, people shouldn't sound all that much different. They all live in the same place. This is a regional dialect, so it shouldn't sound different. What you can just change is the pitch, the frequency, or the pitch, the tempo, and slurs and stuff like that. Just little subtle variations because they're all from the same area. If we hear someone from Georgia talking, or two people from Georgia talking, they're going to sound very similar. It's just going to be a change in their pitch and kind of speed a little bit, but they're going to sound very similar. Same should be true with your characters. If I'm in Baldur's Gate and I talk to a commoner and then I go over to a shop, they should sound pretty much the same. There's no reason to go into a Russian accent for one, and then a West Coast California accent for the other. That wouldn't make sense in the story. So keep it consistent with the world. And whenever you move to a new location, set it in your brain. Okay, these people in this city are going to sound like X. And then you can make the subtle variation from there. So that would be my advice to you. I'm not sure if we answered the question, but hopefully it gave you something to think about. Wobbling Weeble, wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Let us know how it's going. But that is going to do it for us this week. Remember,
Adam,
if you want to... What?
I have to ask you, can you please do a Bing Crosby meets Matt McConaughey voice?
I intend to, because that's going to be a character upcoming at some point, because I love the idea of a mix of those two, and I'll save it for another. I'm still working out the accent a little bit, but I mean, when you think of Matthew McConaughey, you kind of... the voice. All right. I keep getting older. But Bing Crosby is kind of like this very much this like, well, hello there, like kind of thing, getting a little bit of the rooster from what's that cartoon for Bugs Bunny and whatnot.
Oh, Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah, get a little foghorn in there. that kind of mixture. So that's what I'm going to be brewing up for my next character. But
all right.
Moving right along.
That's great.
Remember, if you want to send in your questions or anything you find on the internet, you can send them to questions@PotomacRPG.com. And if you'd like to support the Potomac RPG podcast, you can find us on coffee.com/PotomacRPG. And lastly, you can follow us at Potomac RPG on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget, our merch store is wide open, ready for sales. So thanks for being on today, Sarah and Ben. Thank you to the rest of the Potomac RPG crew. Fun show. Love this. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners out there. For the Potomac RPG podcast, I am Adam.
I am Sarah.
And I am Ben.
Until next time, keep those dice rolling, keep those stories coming, and
never stop playing.
You know what's going to happen is I'm going to do this and I'm going to hear shit from Pot of Many Things about my horrible accent.